I'm an introvert learning how to be an extrovert. And then my position, I do have to speak. And I speak technically better than I can speak about myself. So anyway, that growing mindset that you can do whatever you wanted to do, but you need to practice, you need to prepare yourself, you need to put yourself out of your comfort zone, and it is okay. I think that is the key factor.
Welcome to the Unleashing Leaders podcast, where we work with willing leaders to accelerate the changes you seek. We'll learn from the experiences of different leaders facing real challenges and distill practical, purposeful steps to apply in your context. I'm Lee Scott, your curious co-pilot. Together, let's make positive changes for our companies and communities. Welcome back to the Unleashing Leaders podcast. Thank you to all of our loyal listeners. We continue to appreciate you coming back to refresh and sharpen your leadership saw on such a regular basis. Today, we are joined by a really amazing leader. We've been trying to get her on the show for a while. We're really glad to get on her busy schedule. Her name is Rosa Leal, and she is based out of Dallas, Texas, as the Director of Commercial Product Strategy and Customer Experience for Rheem. For some of you out there in the U.S., Rheem, you might be familiar with it on a residential basis. They are HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, but they do both commercial and residential and a bunch of other things as well. But basically, what you want to know about Rosa is she is a genius innovator, knows really how to listen well to the customer and get her geek on with all the engineers to make the magic happen. And today, we're going to be looking at, how do leaders overcome challenges to get to where they're at? How do we do product innovation really well? And then how can we also be a little more effective in navigating our own teams across the customer experience? So a lot to talk about. Rosa, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Lee, for having me here.
So Rosa, tell us a little bit more about your current role. Like, what is it that you're kind of doing on a regular basis? We'll get into the details later, but just what does your role give you the opportunity to do today at Rheem?
Sure. I have the opportunity to lead the commercial product management team, really talented team, and we focus on the strategy and also customer experience. So we are responsible to lead, understand, and provide the customer products. We look to the market trend, we look competitors, and we look what happened in the industry, what regulations are coming, and then put our brains together to design and work with engineering and other business units to develop the best products in the industry.
And you know, what you just described, I think many of our listeners, maybe in smaller businesses or in the middle of other large organizations, can relate to that. But you're doing it at a pretty massive scale. I mean, you guys are, your customer base is international. You got a very robust product line, on things that affect a lot of lives, a lot of people, both, like I said, at work, in the office, but also in warehouses and manufacturing. It's a pretty comprehensive level of complexity you're dealing with. So if you could, though, Rosa, tell us a bit about your origin story. So where did you start your career, and maybe what were some key moments along the way we can use to celebrate how you got here?
Well, I'm originally from Venezuela, and I started my career in the automotive industry. I'm a mechanical engineer, and I moved to USA in 2003. When I came to USA, I designed alternators for GM, but also for NASCAR.
Oh, very cool. And for my listeners, I'm not my son's he's the car guy in our family, but alternators, that's the device that takes the energy from the engine and generates electricity so all of your gadgets and the car keeps working. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. See, I can kind of follow it a little bit, but yeah. But you did it for NASCAR also. Very cool.
And then I transitioned to the HVAC industry. It has been a good journey in my career. But when people ask me what I do, and I have a special mantra. I love what I do, and I do everything with love.
Oh, that's awesome. Look at you smile. That's so great. I definitely can appreciate and resonate with that. I think that's why we connected so well when we first started speaking. Uh, I do what I love and I do everything I do with love. And, it sounds like that could be hard to do in a mechanical engineering environment. That starts to sound a little more sterile and it's not as personal. But it's all still interfacing with what we're doing as humans, and it's all affecting all of our lives. When you think about climate control and air quality, like there's nothing more personal than that. And you've got like a whole bunch of patents behind you, Rosa. I mean, you're being really polite about it, but like, tell us about some of the patents that you've been able to earn and do with love.
Yes, one of the patent that I'm very proud is a recent product. It was a collaboration with a team. That we designed a 15 to 25 ton package rooftop unit, and we designed a refrigeration cycle with a special microchannel coils. That allows in a small box achieve higher efficiency, and the new regulations are going through that direction. So we have two major regulations recently. DOE 2023, we have in higher part load efficiency was up to 15% of incremental. But also, right now, beginning of 2025, we have new refrigerant for all units, residential and commercial. So if you don't know, starting January 2025, all your units will have a new refrigerant.
Yep, yep. And that's on the chemical engineering side, like continued innovation there to be like, hey, how do we have refrigerants that perform and meet the specs we have without some of the not so great side effects of them, right?
Correct.
Yeah, yeah. No, and that's just one of like 24, I think it is. How many total patents? Again, in collaboration always. I know you'll give the credit away, but total number of patents. What's the current count since we last spoke? You probably got three more.
I think it's kind of close to 20 or 21.
We'll allow you to be on the show with 20, right? If 19, we cut you. We're like, no, get out of here. No, this is great.
I honestly don't count, but I always thinking on what is the next things that we can do, or I can do, or I can train my team to do. I also like to teach how to do this innovation and how to do patents. I also help with the local schools on my community to talk about patents and how younger kids can be innovative as well. So
That's awesome. Well, no, that's definitely your superpower. And, I'm guessing, when you talk about innovation, so many folks, are like, well, I'd be more innovative if I had more resources or if I had more information or if it was easier, right? Then I can innovate. And, you talked about the regulatory environment changing. You talk about the customer's need changing. Like, I like to look at it as, I heard this from Tony Robbins a long time ago. Necessity is the mother of invention, right? When it's hard, when it's challenging, when it's difficult, that's when you actually are more innovative. And so rather than seeing that adversity or those constraints as a reason to not be innovative, I look at it as an invitation that now you can be more innovative. How would you characterize that in terms of your journey and relationship with innovation? You're like, oh, it's just been easy, and I just flick my wrist because I'm so smart, and everybody listens to me. Like, has that been your journey, or maybe you've had some adversity along the way?
no, I do have a lot of challenges that I overcame, of course. But I think one is being an immigrant, and English is my second language. So I really learned how to listen to people. And when people talk to me, I sometimes take very literally. what they said. So that happened with customers. When I'm in a customer environment and I understand that it's a problem, but sometimes they don't know how to explain what is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you dig into the questions and into the answers and into the situation and application, you realize that, this is not really the problem. The problem was something else.
No, that never happens. See, if you were a native English speaker, that would never happen, right? Of course it happens all the freaking time, right? Even in my own house, it happens. Like, are we really speaking the same language here? How? But I love how you said that. It's that, what the customer is just trying to share what's going on for them. They don't know how, if they knew how to articulate it, they would have had your job, not the other way around. So being able to listen and decipher and really be like, I am hearing you and I'm listening for that deeper understanding. I think actually having to work harder as a communicator to do that probably makes you slow down and think more carefully and helps you then be able to tease out those differences so that you can be responsive versus just assuming, yeah, I know what you mean. No, that's really brilliant. So that I can see how this plays into what you've gotten really good at, which is listening to customers.
Definitely, yes. Paying attention, but also understanding a different point of view. It's not about myself, it's about a group of people. So when you are in an environment that you can collaborate and you have great mindsets next to you, that is when the collaboration and the magic happen. And I am in an organization that this is a daily, for us, daily common practice. So that helps.
Well, but you don't just inherit that. You have to build that, right? You have to create that a communication channel and the trust and the respect so you can hear and share. Some people refer to it as psychological safety. And I'm like, well, that's like level one, right? Yeah, you got to have the psychological safety to be willing to share. But there is a proficiency and a skill with being able to deeply listen to your colleagues and challenge each other's ideas. And you got to build that. Ever encountered a situation where maybe either somebody didn't quite believe in you as a leader, or maybe you didn't even believe in yourself as a leader? Any that you ran into along the way, and how have you dealt with that?
Yes, it happened. I have been told that I will never be successful because I have a heavy accent, and I have been told that I will never be a good product manager. But I guess I proved people wrong. I worked really hard. I studied a lot, and I love my job. So I think when you love what you do, you put the best on you and stay focused.
Yeah, and you fight for it, right? You got after it. And did you ever have any of those internal doubts yourself where you were just like, well, maybe they're right, maybe I won't be, maybe it's not the thing for me. As harsh as some of those external critics can be, and they're short-sighted and they're like, yeah, prove them wrong. Absolutely. But sometimes we can have our own doubts and be the ones telling us that you'll never make it. Did you ever run into that? And then what did you do when you did? How did you help yourself break through to the other side?
Yes, a lot of um, mentally exercise or mental exercise. Stay focused. Yes, I have some doubts, but I always think the universe put me here in a place where I can be better myself. I like to be out of my comfort zone. So I try to do things that I probably don't like, but I force myself to do it. So I overcame this obstacle. Um, as an example, I'm taking ballroom dancing right now.
No way. That no? What style, Rosa?
I do walk,
Waltz. Oh, some classic stuff.
yeah, rumba,
Rumba, the dance of love.
yeah, tango. But again, I hate this attention. I'm an introvert learning how to be an extrovert. And then my position, I do have to speak. And I speak technically better than I can speak about myself. So anyway, that growing mindset that you can do whatever you wanted to do, but you need to practice, you need to prepare yourself, you need to put yourself out of your comfort zone, and it is okay. I think that is a key factor.
Absolutely. And, I think sometimes people associate being uncomfortable or being discomfort as like, ooh, this is bad. I should get out of here. Right. And what you did is you tricked your brains into saying, no, the uncomfortable part is the part where you grow. That's where the magic happens. And whether that's in another country, another language, another industry, or even on the ballroom dance floor, right? That you're like being uncomfortable is where you're comfortable because that's where you grow, right? So maybe you could give us, for those of us who would love to have more of that in our organization, could you start first of all with some of the product innovation life cycle? So give us your summary. When you got that innovative itch, you got a sneaking suspicion that there's an opportunity to serve a customer or enhance a product in some way. Tell us a little bit about how you do that in a systematic way. And then maybe along the ways we can zoom in some tips and tricks for those of us who are trying to do it in our organizations.
Sure. For us, first of all, understanding there is a problem or there is a need for the customer, or is a regulatory challenge. So we do have what we call product excellence panel, where we contact the best customers. Can be contractors, distributors, the final user of the product, and then we invited them to come and have like sessions in person when we talk about this is the idea, this is what we're trying to do. Tell us what you like, what is the must to have, the nice to have, and they don't do. So then this is how our process and cycle start. Then from them, the product team always understand the market, what is in trend, what competitors are doing, what is the next step into regulation. We participate in technical committees at the same time, because most of the time, the regulation takes time. So if we wait to that to happen, we're not ready. So we have to work with them before the regulation passes and have an idea what will be the final result. So after that, we have also internal stakeholders, right? We have our internal customer, which are our engineering department, our manufacturing department, our quality department, sourcing, and all the internal teams. And then we provide that customer feedback. We have all our sessions, and then we start our stage gate process. So to help us to go through every step in the process to deliver the best product results. Now, with customers, we divided into 3 stages. The initial validation of feedback. Then in the middle of the project, we have a second product excellence panel when we show the results, more tangible unit.
Prototypes, right?
Prototypes, right? And then walking with them through the final journey. And then the third one is, it is the final product. Do you love it? And thank you, because you help us to do that. And this is a celebration.
Got it. That is a great summary. So kind of 3 major blocks, right? There's the ideation. There is the external alignment piece of it. with customers, market trends, regulations, and then there's the internal development of it. And then I liked how you framed it from the customer journey's perspective. You have that first product excellence panel, then you have the prototype, and then you have the share and celebrate on how we've delivered this innovation. So I think that's the high level framework, if it were.
Right. But also we have the unique piece at Rheem is our customer is not only our final customer.
Yes. So let's zoom in on that a little bit more, because and so many folks, when they talk about being customer experience or being customer focused, it's this idea. It's like, well, it's the shopper at the retail store who is buying your stuff, and it's like, well, and in some businesses that might be it. Like, that's just as simple as that. But in more and more businesses, you've got layers of customers and different personas of customers. So in your guys' industry with HVAC, who are the primary categories of customers? And they might not always agree, right?
So we design for manufacturing at Rheem. So engineering and manufacturing are kind of first customers, right? But quality team is also an important customer or internal stakeholder. And then our sourcing team, which we love our sourcing team, is also very important because they are the one that have to deal with external vendors, right? And with the situation right now, it's a little bit of challenge find the right supplier. But then we have, I will say and apologize, my first customer is the sales team.
Yeah, right.
And I always say, they don't sell, we don't eat.
Nope. Yeah, exactly. You can hate it, but don't hate the player, hate the game.
I started with the sales team. Sales team and my customers, they are number one.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have my internal customers. Then I have my going back to my external customer. Yeah. But for the external customer, even if it's a final contractor or the specified engineer, so what is the life cycle from when they expect the product, when they purchase the product, when they shipping the product, and when they have to install and service? That is the customer experience that we wanted to provide to them, and we wanted to make it easier to work with us.
Yep. And even on that side of those externals, right, you talked about there's the engineer that's specifying it. There's the person that's got to write the check for it, right? The person that's got to install it, the person that's got to operate it, and then the people that are working in the manufacturing or the office building, whatever, who have to breathe it, and that's, and this might be your second most favorite customer. I know sales is first, and then you've got the regulators, right? I mean, and I think often folks look at regulators also as, an enemy or an adversary or a challenge. And it's like, but they're a customer too. They have requirements, they have needs, and you can have a positive customer experience with your regulators, or you can have a hostile one. So looking at all those, and not, the person writing the check has certain needs that are a little different than the person sitting at the desk that's got to breathe it, different needs than the person that's got to maintain it, so having a holistic view of that as your customer ecosystem, I think is pretty complicated in your situation, but I think it's more like what most of us deal with and we just don't realize it. Well, I wanted to zoom in a little bit on a couple of things you talked about with that funnel. One of them was, it's a keyword for me, you said, don't wait. Right. And you use the example of there's a pending change in a regulatory environment. But that could also be true with a shift in customer sentiment, right, about what they're looking for, or a new use case that's emerging in terms of how your products could serve in a different way. And you said don't wait. And in our company, wait is a 4-letter word. And I think the argument, Rosa, and I'm curious to see how you navigate this uncertainty, is like, well, if you jump into it before it's all settled, you're going to waste time, right? Because it could be this way, it could be this way. You might got all worked up for nothing. And, so don't do anything until it's certain and then get on it. And that's more efficient. But you pointed out like, well, then it's too late.
It is too late.
So tell us a little bit about, but also if you try to innovate on every idea under the sun, you'd blow your whole budget and you wouldn't get anything done. So how do you calibrate this sense of being proactive so that you're ready for it while handling the uncertainty that's inherent with that? You're like, I'm trying to innovate in a world where I'm not sure what the rules are yet, or I'm not sure what the customer is going to want yet. So how do you help calibrate how you prioritize and manage in that cone of uncertainty?
Yeah, it is difficult, but I guess what I do in my team, we're trying to stay on top of technical committees in the industry. What's happening? We're participating. We are hearing. We know the history. We use data to drive the final decision. So is a smart guess, very based on some facts that already happened, and we know what is going to happen. So a lot of reading, a lot of technical reading, a lot of building code readings, a lot of participation. So and then you're right, how you can be efficient in the decision that you are taking. And that is instrumental. So again, for us is make sure we're in plug with the industry, make sure we collaborate, make sure we understand what are the market trends, what competitors are doing, and then we help each other. Hey, I find out this, I find out that, and we don't work in silo. So communication, collaboration with the team, and reading a lot of what's happening.
Well, and I think what you're highlighting here is as a leader, and again, not necessarily you yourself personally, but when you look at your team on a broader perspective is, I think, if you want to play it safe, if you just like, look, I just want to not waste my time. I just want to know with certainty, and then I'll pick it up and then I'll do it. And I don't want to go to a lot of, meetings and events and whatever, well, then you're going to get crushed, right? You're not leading, you're following, and you're going to be a victim of circumstances. What I heard you describe was you've got to be in the right places. You've got to get in the right arenas so that you're out there with, you mentioned the trade associations, you mentioned some of the customer groups out there so that you can catch wind early on when the shifts are happening, and you can be sharing to that. And that's weird sometimes because you're doing that in many respects with your competitors, right? But you're like, hey, look, this is something that raises the tide that raises all boats. So you've got to be willing to be in the right arenas, and then be able to use that information, bring it back to your home and say, all right, team, here are the trends. Here's the trend that's starting to rise. Here's a trend that's stable. All right, now where do we want to prioritize our scarce resources accordingly? But if you try to just wait until it's certain and it's clear and you don't waste your time, you've just wasted a lot of time. So that was very, very helpful. So could we zoom in a little bit also on when you're having those product excellence panels that you mentioned, and we talked about this earlier, right? Like the customer, like I love the Henry Ford quote, which was, if I asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said faster horses, right? Now, whether or not he actually said that or not, I don't know, but it's a good quote, even if it's made up. What's the 78% of statistics are made up on the spot, right? Oh, there you go. But if you just have asked the customers as if you're an order taker, you're not going to get the distinctions you need out of it. So do you have a tip or two, without giving any away trade secrets, when you're in those product excellence panels and you're asking for their input, how do you uncover really the interests?
That is a key point, because sometimes you have to educate your customer. Your customer has an idea, but sometimes education on what happened outside. Then that is a tip. But again, it's like a racing cars, right? You have the first race and you stop, and it's the second race, and then you stop, and it's like we never stop looking for alternative solution. I think that's the second tip.
Okay. Well, and there, do you ever run into resistance from your own internal teammates where they're like, you're looking for an alternative solution, but maybe they feel a little uncomfortable about that? Like, hey, are you questioning me? Are you challenging what I've done before? Right? I don't know if you've ever encountered that. Probably not,
No, that happened all the time. And it still happen. It still happened to me. Yeah. Personally, I struggle with that because I used to design products. So in different applications, high efficiency products with higher technology and higher controls, advanced controls.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm sitting in the table helping to create a product strategy. And yes, a lot of people are questioning why are we doing this and why and why. And then you have to explain what is helping us or helping me is using facts, using data, um, competitor benchmarking somehow, and again, understanding our customers. Okay. Also, every state is a little bit different. So if you design a product for California, probably not the same need to a product in another state.
Yep, for sure. But that's where and that ties back to what you were sharing earlier there, in that the work you did up front to be part of the industry conversations, to be in communication with your customers, right? Then when you're saying this has got to change, if you just as a leader show up and you say like, hey, you guys, change this from A to B because I said so, that's going to get old really, really quick, right? There's a time and a place for that, trust me. But like that, but if you can say, hey, here's what the trends are, here's what the customers are asking for, here's where we have the opportunity, ergo, this is why we want to change. If you're connecting those dots, and that does take a little bit more effort. I'd rather just say, look, just do it because I'm the boss. But you're short-circuiting that process, and not allowing them to understand why. And here's the thing is that maybe when you ask for A to B, if you give them the Y, they might come up with a C that's even better than what you were thinking of, right? So these all relate to each other in terms of really creating a culture of innovation.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is a value of having a product management team. A lot of corporations, that concept, it either doesn't exist or they don't understand what is our role in the company. So understanding that we need to understand the product requirements, understand our customers, talk to the sales team, talk to an internal people, combine those product requirements into a document that the people can understand, and work with the whole team from beginning to the end. I think that is the key.
Yeah. And you just described that product management concept. And I think, maybe smaller or mid-sized businesses might say, well, we don't need something like that, or we can't, justify that. Sales will tell us what to do, right? Or, the internal engineers will just, of course, they're always innovating. They're open-minded. They're good people. But I think even in a smaller organization that's not quite as, awesome as you guys are, to be able to say, hey, could we at least take a moment to designate one or a couple of people to come together, work across those silos and say like, yeah, sales, what are you hearing from the customers? What are you hearing in the regulatory environment? Internal operations, where are the most frequent challenges coming up when we're, getting, maintenance calls or warranty issues or whatnot? And it's all there, but it's hard to connect the dots. So being able to have somebody pull that together, even if it's periodically, not every single day, you can have a product management function that isn't necessarily a full-time designation in a smaller organization, right? Now, in a large organization, it's like, yeah, no, don't just assume it happens by accident. Be purposeful about it. And that's what you guys have really built over the years. So he's just trying to make it accessible to some of our listeners out there. Like, oh, I'm not a, $8 billion company. How am I supposed to do this? Well, let's switch gears just a little bit here. Thank you for some of the tips on how do you have a systematic approach to innovation. I want to zoom back in on that customer journey. So when you're looking at those different customer types and you're looking across the journey, as I recall, it was, there was the manufacturing, the specification, install, operation, and maintenance. What are some things that you guys do to keep the different areas of specialties aware of all those different customer touch points? Because if I'm in your organization, I might only ever deal with the warranty calls, or I might only ever deal with the specifying engineer. Tell us a little bit more about how you guys keep those dots connected across your organization.
That is a good question. We do have an internal product development process, which is a stage gate process that ties all the internal stakeholders and the external stakeholders. And we have a timeline for every single request or every single task. So that process tells you at what time you need to, start inviting everybody to the conversation. So that is very important for us, following our internal process. Yeah.
So Rosa, tell us then what might be the trigger that starts that process of being able to say this is worthy of investigation in terms of an opportunity to improve?
Yes, this is a good question because it could start for a regulatory requirement or the need of new product. So for new product introduction, we do have a PDP process, which we call product development process, and the product team initiate that. When it's a quality internal issue or another issue, then we do have processes that we need to follow. I always remind everybody we're an ISO company, and we have processes in place to understand and resolve issues.
Rosa, this is very helpful. There was another thing you alluded to when you were introducing the overall framework, and that's that notion of stage gates, right? That there's stage gates approval. And along each of those stage gates, there are different types of risks that can be encountered, different uncertainty, right? Did we interpret the customer's needs correctly? Did the engineered prototype meet the actual needs? Is it something that we can work with? There's lots of different risks in there. What are some ways that you guys use your design thinking to be able to articulate and quantify risks versus having those things just stop you dead in your tracks? Like, what makes you unstoppable?
That's another great question. Part of our PDP process, we have a risk metrics. That works is all our internal stakeholders get together and understand from the design perspective and from what we're trying to accomplish and the time that we're trying to accomplish, what are those risks? And we rank those risks, and then we manage, and then we're trying to put mitigation plan in order to avoid any issue in the product development cycle. So we do have weekly meetings, and we have monthly meetings with leadership team when we review all those risks, and we talk about it, and if we need to escalate, what are the actions that we need to do in order to solve those issues.
So do people get punished if they raise a risk? It's like, is that like seen as a bad thing? Like, please shut up, pipe down over there, right? Is that the norm?
No. I would say at Rheem, we are very nice company with very nice people. sometimes, sometimes it is a challenge when you're too nice.
Yeah, you can go the other extreme, right?
You
Um,
don't know the extreme because you say, "Hey, are you accountable for this? I don't want to blame anybody, but just give me a plan and give me a result." That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's real. And I think the idea is like, yes, when you're innovating, you need a balance of this positivity and hopefulness and enthusiasm, to believe, before you have all the data. And there's also got to be a thing around like, yeah, I'm being a little skeptical. I'm asking questions. I'm challenging. I'm being critical. And I think sometimes we think of those as two opposite things. I like to look at them as they're collaborative, right? And so when you're in that innovative cycle, if somebody's raising a risk, right? Now you don't have to be a jerk about the way you raise it, but to be able to say, "Hey guys, I think there's a risk we might have misinterpreted the customer's expectations. There's the risk that we might not be able to pull this off by this date." Like that's not somebody being negative. That's somebody being helpful to say, let's name it, let's decide if it's worth looking at, and let's have a conversation about it, right? But let's not shoot the messenger, right? And I think you guys have cultivated that kind of culture. I think a lot of people would be envious of that kind of culture, but again, you have to build it. It doesn't just happen by itself.
Yes, I would say three important factors: clear communication, collaboration, and teamwork. That is the three key that make us successful.
Absolutely, because that keeps those channels of innovation open, right? You close them off, you're dead. Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Well, Rosa, thank you for sharing with us today. A little bit about your history and how you got here. I think many folks, as a leader, they're like going, "Oh, maybe I'm more introverted, or maybe I'm not as deep of an expert, or maybe I've got a language barrier, maybe, and you've been able to say like, look, yeah, it's challenging, but it's a worthwhile journey. And here you are really transforming some amazing things. You've also given us a good innovative framework to kind of how to think about innovation. I think the idea like it's like this light bulb just goes off in your head, right? And you're just like, I'm just sitting here like, oh, my gosh, I have it. Like, no, it requires iterative, open conversations, listening, and all of those things can kind of create a more innovative environment over time. So thank you for sharing all those things. I had one last question for you, if you're okay to share with it. In your journey as a leader in engineering, but just in general, like you said, you're doing stuff out in your community. You've seen things in multiple different countries. What's one aspect that you would want other leaders to know about if they were trying to have a greater impact on the world? What would be one aspect you would say, here's what I found to be really helpful trying to be a leader in today's world? What would that be?
I would say um, kindness and willing to listening people, and also be have empathy. I think empathy, being a good listener, and be kind. I think there are three good qualities that leaders should have to make an impact, even at work and outside work.
Yeah. Yeah. And for coming from somebody who is as intelligent and as knowledgeable and as smart as you, I think sometimes folks in technical roles feel like, well, the way to be the leader is to be the smartest person in the room. And what I'm hearing from you is like, yeah, you can be smart. Look, you're absolutely brilliant, right? And if you haven't picked up on it during this podcast, I hope you see it now. You're also very kind and courteous, Rosa. And I think that is a fantastic combination for a leader to emphasize. So yeah, you don't have to, you can be decisive. Like you said, we can be too nice, right? Sometimes we got to be like, I'm sorry, I just got to make this decision. We're moving on. But that it starts with kindness. When can you be kind? All the time. Even when I'm being clear, even when I'm being accountable, I can still be kind. Love it. Love it. Anything else you want to share with us, Rosa? Anything exciting coming up for you?
Well, a lot of things are exciting. We're also working on new product development and decarbonization, electrification is a real thing. We wanted to help to have a better, have less effect on climate change. So the company has a big initiative on those efforts. I think that's exciting.
That is pretty exciting. Well, I think you said something when we were first chatting, and it's like, at the end of the day, it's a box that pushes air.
Right.
But that doesn't mean there's still not radical room for innovation, improvement, and changing it to make it even better, right?
That's right.
Yes, yes. And breathing again, it's kind of important.
It is important.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, thank you again for taking some time. I know you're incredibly busy, changing the world, one commercial installation at a time. But thanks for being on the show, Rosa.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed this time together.
Thank you for joining us today on the Unleashing Leaders podcast. Subscribe so you don't miss a moment that could be the key to your next breakthrough. Let's stay connected and contribute together by grabbing that @Unleashing Leaders handle on LinkedIn, YouTube, or your favorite network. This is Lee Scott. Keep learning, loving, and leading. Our future and our communities are counting on us.